You know, when the people of Azerbaijan, all Azerbaijanis of the world, saw those images, we all probably experienced the same feelings, including myself. My feelings were no different from those of all Azerbaijani citizens, pride and joy, of course. At the same time, I also thought that one should always believe in justice, because for 30 years, faith in justice in Azerbaijani society was somewhat undermined. And this is not good for any society. This inevitably has a negative impact on people's consciousness, may lead to despondence, and creates conditions for pessimism to spread in society. In other words, these factors are very dangerous for the emergence and strengthening of society, a healthy society. Therefore, there must be a reason to believe in justice. We should all know that justice does not appear out of the blue, and that you have to secure justice. In the modern world, we had long understood this. If you look at my speeches, perhaps for the last 10 to 15 years, I have repeatedly said that international law does not work. These mechanisms are deployed only for the weaker countries. Bigger states ignore them. For them, it is as if law is not law. International law is not law. Under such circumstances, countries that demand justice, and rightly so, must secure this justice themselves. Guided by this principle, we worked hard in recent years and restored justice ourselves. Therefore, it is also important from this point of view, because our faith in justice has been restored. In other words, we all saw that, yes, justice has prevailed. We have completed our just cause and restored justice ourselves. Unfortunately, the key players of the international community did not share our opinion. On the contrary, they tried to blame us and to engage various pressure mechanisms against us. In other words, we achieved this justice by waging political and diplomatic war at the international level. Therefore, our victory is even more important. Also, the images you have just mentioned were coming before my eyes. The same square, the same city, but a completely different landscape. In that square, at the top of that square, I have to say that an Azerbaijani architect, if I am not mistaken, his name was Hasan Majidov. He was the author of the building called Obkom. We all witnessed the beginning of a very ugly game against Azerbaijan from that building, from that square. As a living witness to those events, you will also remember that the special committee established in Karabakh at the time had actually become a mechanism for alienating Karabakh from Azerbaijan. That special committee, the person who was in charge of it, and other persons, all their steps and actions were aimed at separating Karabakh from Azerbaijan and annexing it to Armenia. So, all these images went through my mind, and of course, the abundance of feelings I experienced does not allow me to say which particular one was dominant. Of course, when I raised the flag in Khojaly, I thought to myself, today, we can say with complete certainty that the blood of Khojaly victims did not remain unavenged. The raising of the flag in Khojaly was therefore more emotional. I can say that quite frankly. And raising the flag in Khankendi was about complete restoration of justice and the final point in our victory. In other words, these are historic moments. We are all happy to live in this era, to be witnessing it. We participated in achieving this great victory. Everyone in their place. You are media representatives. Myself as Supreme Commander-in-Chief. All categories of our population brought this victory closer with their hard work. It had become a nationwide issue, a nationwide movement. And despite the efforts of many of our international partners, this topic was not forgotten for 30 years. They wanted to make us forget this. Under various pretexts, cooperation with Armenia, creation of contacts through various non-governmental organizations to prepare people and societies for peace. The aim was that the young generation growing up in Azerbaijan should grow up in a different spirit. But our goal was that the growing generation should be patriotic, never come to terms with this injustice. And if we are not lucky enough to restore this historical justice, the future generations should do it. I have to mention another issue. Of course, we all wanted to restore our territorial integrity as soon as possible. However, from the point of view of history, 30 years is not such a long period of time. During this period, many proposals were put forward during the negotiations, and some might wonder why Azerbaijan was not accepting them. After all, based on these proposals, several districts would have been returned to Azerbaijan without any war. The former displaced persons would have returned to their homes, and at the same time, the situation would have been normalized. Why doesn't Azerbaijan agree and come to terms with these proposals? Of course, the negotiations had their own strategy and tactics. Of course, we conducted the negotiations in a manner that minimized external pressure while achieving our goals. But the main thing for me was that this is a historical issue. It is a national issue, and it would be wrong to seek some seemingly favorable gains. We must solve the issue in a fundamental way. We must solve it once and for all. We must fully restore our territorial integrity and sovereignty. There should not have been a single nest of separatism anywhere in our country. And if our generation was not lucky enough to do that, we should raise such a young generation that would come and do it after 20 years, after 30 years, after 50 years. That was the primary issue, of course. We are all happy to have seen and experienced these historic days. And this historic victory will remain forever in the history of the people and state of Azerbaijan.
Və bu tarixi zəfər Azərbaycan xalqının dövlətinin tarixində əbədi qalacaq.